So I think you have been very clear with whatever you have been talking about, but still, I think there's a lot of confusion when it comes to data science, especially when we talk about machine learning. A lot of people can get confused, or get overwhelmed also sometimes.
Mhm.
So when you have to explain it to an absolute beginner, like for you when you had that hackathon, so you kind of were exposed to this machine learning thing which you wanted to learn. So how would you put it so that it's very clear to somebody that you're explaining it?
See, I think as a country, we have evolved, right?
Yes.
Since last 5 years, we have seen revolutionary things come up, right? UPI being the first one. Then we have transformation of other government schemes coming up, which are making things much more easier, right? And very recently, if you have heard about it, government is launching a platform which is going to make it much more easier for you to take credit loans also.
Okay.
They're trying to understand that, let's say, okay, you are spending so much money in this category, right? They'll make you much more easier for you to not spend time finding these people, and they'll bring the platform closer to you.
All right.
So fintech companies are this, and then there's the third segment, which is like in the insurance segment, right? You might have seen now the boom that you can now do your bike insurance just by sitting on an app, take some photos of your bike, and insurance is done.
Oftentimes, we lose sight of why we started learning data science. It was our problem-solving mindset that took us on this journey. With all the programming and the metrics, we may find ourselves deviating from the actual objective. Welcome to yet another tech podcast from Intellipaat. Today, we have with us Mr. Shivam Kotwalia. Our esteemed guest has proved his mettle in the data science industry, having worked with companies like Meta, McKinsey, and Nagaro, and a stealth fintech that's going to make news anytime now. Mr. Shivam brings in more than a decade of experience and wisdom. He will discuss applications of data science in various fields and help us guide through many problems someone might face in generating data points. With a strong hold on problem-solving mindset, he will also broaden our horizon as to how every domain can be a data science domain. Stay tuned until the end of this video to catch some really cool insights about sports analytics and fintech nitty-gritties with data science.
So we have with us Mr. Shivam Kotwalia. Welcome, sir, to the podcast. And we have just introduced you, and we have talked about the kind of experience that you have. So currently, you are a head of analytics, and I would just want to know what exactly does a head of analytics, takes care of, what sort of tasks that you are involved with.
Thank you, first of all, for having me on the show, right? Head of analytics, right, is somebody, let's say, who's setting up the whole team, right?
Yes.
Somebody who's responsible to make sure that the business is empowered by analytics. So that person will, let's say, have a bunch of people. This person is an individual contributor also, and as well as, let's say, manages a team also. And he or she makes sure that the organization is completely benefited or empowered with the data that the company is making, and breaking those complex big things into smaller actionable things for the business teams. Like, see, you can't expect a marketing manager to understand data, right? So what analytics team would do is they would take this data, they would break this data down into much more actionable insights.
All right.
And then they would share it with those marketing teams, finance teams, and other things. So a head of analytics is somebody who's responsible for setting up these teams and also these frameworks. So what data to be consumed,
Yes.
right? Data governance, data securities, right? What data will come in, how it will be stored. And then once it is stored, what kind of insights will be shared for the upliftment of the product.
So when we say, you have a lot of people working with you or under you, let's say, so how many people are we talking about? Like what the size of the team could be, depending on the task, let's say, frameworks you've talked about, or setting up the data, what is that, pipeline?
So it majorly depends on the corporation you're working, right? The scale at which the
Yes.
company is. So let's say if you're talking about a small nascent startup, that might be a smaller number, let's say in single digit. And let's say if you're talking about established institute, right? They might have a huge like an army of analytics analysts who are there, and they're led by a. So now these days you might have seen a chief data officer kind of a designation also, like a chief data scientist officer also designation, like these are there. Chief AI scientist is there, right? These designations do exist, and so it depends on two things. One is the size of the company itself, and the second is that what sector they are. So if you talk about, let's say, the new age startup companies, they are more focused on data. They are very data first driven.
Okay.
So they don't have any intuitions. They don't work on any guts. They work purely on data, what data says. Whereas there are still legacy companies, these big fortune companies, right? They're still learning. I'm not saying that they don't have the teams. They have the teams, but they're still learning the process of how do you make a team, how do you set up a team. And it's very important because a lot of friction is also there between the existing teams and the analytics. So the head of analytics, that the previous question that we had, right, also has a responsibility to make sure that his or her team also with very less friction is merged in this ecosystem, and their learnings are being shared over there.
Now, why I asked you this is because I also wanted to understand what kind of roles can be involved here. We'll come back to this after some time.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask, let's say your journey in this domain has been very fascinating. I mean, the kind of organizations that you've worked with. So I just wanted to know, what was it like? What was your formal education, or the college education that you have had helped you in this journey? Like, is there a sort of connection that you feel has helped you? Or let's say if you had to do it again after knowing all the secrets, the big insights that you worked on, what would you change or what would you do differently?
That's a very good question, actually, because I think data analytics is one of the fields, right, which has almost very low entry barrier part. All right, let's say the prerequisites are very low. So I personally did my engineering into electronics and communication. Far away, had no relationship with even computer science.
It must have been very. Was it difficult for you to transition?
So I was not a born data scientist.
Oh, yes.
I'm very old. When I started my career as an ERP consultant. Okay. So you might have heard of SAP or Microsoft Dynamics AX. These are enterprise resource planning tools that are used by these big corporations to manage their company. So I was doing that, and there's an interesting story. So that one day, a hackathon was organized in our company, and with my full heart, I took part into it. It was a full 2-day event. I stayed in the office. We had full fun. I made that model also, and still I could not win it.
Okay. So was it related to machine learning?
That was a simple problem that they gave us in the hackathon, and we had to solve it. Right now, you can solve it through anything, right? Okay. And I was given a consolation. So I was standing not even first, second, third. I was like a far kid standing over there, and it was very heartbreaking for me to understand that I spent 3 days, complete days over this thing, right? And how can somebody take me over this thing? So I went to this first position person and I asked him, sir,
what did you do?
Yeah, what did you do, right? Can you help me with that?
Yes.
That person changed my life. Okay. That person introduced me to the world of data. He said that you have made a conventional thing, whereas I used a more dynamic approach. And he said the term called as machine learning.
Okay.
That term stuck with me.
So when was this? Like, what is the time era we're talking about?
We're talking about 2013. 2013, mid of 2013, we're talking about that era. And that stayed with me. That machine learning is something that is over there. And that particular time, machine learning was there, but it was not so, like the beat of the world was not there.
Yeah, I mean, right now we see it in the curriculums at colleges, but I don't think in 2013 we had that.
No, we were not even curriculum. I mean, industry also had like very less penetration.
Yes.
Very less people knew about it. Very less industries were using it, right? So that changed my life. I wanted to understand. So I started with that problem, that how is this being solved by machine learning? And I went back. That time we had YouTube, but we had less resources on it, right? But I think the open source culture of this particular industry is fantastic, right? I mean, you'll see there are universities who have courses over there. Yes. They're trying to upbring these things. So I started learning about it. And slowly I understood that data is the tool, okay, right? Through which you can furnace anything.
Yes.
You can ignite any sector, any domain, any problem, right? The solution is with data.
But
So I started.
that's the problem also. I mean, we'll talk about that.
So that's how I started my career over there. And I started. So I'm a self-taught. I learned myself, and then I gradually started using it in my same company. I said that it's very good that I'm doing ERP, and I thank my company that they gave me a chance to switch my careers over there, and then the rest is history.
All right. So if you had to do something differently, you probably would have chosen these instead of electrical, let's say, for example. If you had gone to a computer science engineering, would it have made a difference?
That's what I'm saying. So it would have made zero difference.
Yes.
Because the entry to data science never asks you that you need to have a computer science degree or you need to be engineering even. I can tell you people right now in my domain, in my team right now, they have done their masters in psychology.
Oh.
And they are data analysts. They are lead data analysts.
But are they doing something related to psychology which involves data, or?
That's the magic, right? That's exactly the magic is that data science allows you to marry the two worlds.
Exactly.
So one is your domain world. So if you, let's say you're a marketing manager, right? Let's say you have spent 7 years in marketing.
Yes.
If you learn data science now, right? It's not something that you're changing the complete world.
Okay.
You can marry the world of data science, and you can marry the world of marketing, and you can become a marketing analyst.
Oh.
Right? So that's the magic of data science, right? It will never let you waste your past experience.
You can just indulge into data or make sense of it in your own domain.
Exactly. I can tell you examples of people who had no idea about maths, who had no idea about tech,
Yes.
but they had the passion for data, right? They had the passion for insights.
So when we say passion for data, is it more of like a problem solving thing? I find a problem and then I just have to solve it anyhow, or is it like, okay, I see data, now I want to do something?
That's again a beautiful question, right? See, generally when you ask somebody that what does it need to become a data scientist, people will tell you have to learn maths, you have to learn probability, statistics, and all these things, right? I say these are required things, and these are good things to have. But before that, that's one more thing, right? That is problem solving mindset.
Yes.
If you go in the world of software engineering, and I'm not demeaning somebody's sector, but I'm saying that those are very organized sectors.
Yes.
If you're a developer, that this is the task that is given to you,
Proper
and you
KRAs.
exactly, and you can define that whole process. Whereas if let's say you're in a data science domain, or let's say machine learning domain, right? I'll give you my example. I was working for a paper and pulp company, right? This company, do you think they're going to call you and say that, hey, make a random forest model for me?
Yes.
No, they will never do this thing, right? They called me and they said that, hey Shivam, hey data scientist, come over here. The quality of our paper is decreasing. Help us identify why it is decreasing and help us increase it. These are the two tasks. Now, so here you require a problem solving mindset, right? How do you take a bigger problem statement? You break it down into smaller parts, and then you use the power of data science to answer that. Or you use the power of machine learning to answer that. So I always say to everybody that yes, maths and tech programming are required, but prior to that, problem solving mindset is very much required.
So for what I think is, those are just the tools to get you to what you are actually required to finish or accomplish.
Exactly.
But you have to have a problem at least. Or do you also do this thing, let's say if there is some task that is happening or a project that's going on, you deliberately try to find a problem that could be better with data?
So see, the end goal, and I think I always convey this thing again, right? That the end goal should not be to make your model better.
Yes.
The end goal should be to solve that problem. Right? See, to be very frank, right? If you ask a business owner,
yes,
that I have made a 95% accurate model,
yes,
or let's say I've made this fantastic model which is doing this XYZ metrics is moving, right? The CEO of that company has zero interest in this thing. Right? They actually want that, are you solving their problem? Is your model solving their problem? This is what they want. They don't want your 95% accurate model.
Yes.
They want, is this model helping me move my metrics, what I initially wanted? If the answer is yes, that is exactly what it is. And this is what people generally try to fight or let's say run behind, right?
Yes.
People think that I should increase my accuracy of my model, and sometimes people forget. I'm saying sometimes
Why
people
they do
forget, why they are doing that thing. What is the purpose behind it, right? So that's why I always say problem solving mindset is very important. That should be the first criteria if you want to become a data scientist, that you love numbers. When you see numbers, right, they excite you.
Yes.
Right? The decisions that you're taking are based on data. This is where your calling is. This is your calling that yes, you have a place in data science industry.
Evidence based problem solving.
Yes.
I think that's one way to put it. So I think you have been very clear with whatever you have been talking about. But still, I think there's a lot of confusion when it comes to data science, especially when we talk about machine learning. A lot of people can get confused or get overwhelmed also sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have to explain it to an absolute beginner, like for you when you had that hackathon, so you kind of were exposed to this machine learning thing which you wanted to learn. So how would you put it so that it's very clear to somebody that you're explaining it to?
Okay. So it's like what my teammates say, right? Is ELI5, like explain it like I am 5.
Yes.
Something like that, right? Okay. So I use this analogy that says that machine learning is nothing but, let's say, trying to predict the future. Now, the moment I say predict the future, you will say,
very excited.
How will you predict the future? Are you kind of an astrology guru or a kind of a baba, right? So the answer is very simple. If let's say today I give you a graph, right? Let's say may I make a graph and I ask you what is the next point? You can try to give the answer.
Yes.
You'll give me answer. What you'll do is you will see the previous patterns in the data. And once you have found that pattern in the data, you'll say, okay, let's say if it goes up and then down and up and down, up and down. So you'll say, okay, it will go up and then it will come down, right? This is exactly what machine learning does. Machine learning is a 3-step process.
Okay.
First, it will consume the historical data, right? Second, it will try to identify patterns in that data.
Okay.
Right. So right now I am explaining you into 2D way, right? But think of it, let's say we are in an nth dimension world.
Right.
And it tries to find those patterns inside the data. And once it has identified that pattern, you have hit the goal. Now you just need to extrapolate this to the future. So now you have found that pattern, right? Now you just move this pattern over there.
Okay.
Now I made it very simple, look like very simple over here.
It is
but
not, yes.
Exactly. But there are a lot of things, right? Seasonality is there in the data, right? If you're working on a time series data, that seasonality is there in the data.
Okay, well, this is what we were talking about forecasting now, I think, yes?
It's like, how do you want to predict the next thing, right?
All right.
Finding the pattern is the most important thing. Every problem, my friend, the data that you are producing, right, has a pattern. Even when you're buying something, even when you're buying food from a food aggregator,
yes,
you have a pattern. You might not agree, but you have a pattern, right? And this is what food aggregators are exploiting. This is just one example that I'm giving you. Any day when we are producing some data, right? As a human, we are producing digital data every second.
Yes.
You have your phone, which is getting your locations. It is your sleep patterns. Your iWatch is generating your pulse and all these things, right? Food aggregators can now actually tell you that on Wednesdays, you like pizzas,
okay,
and on Fridays, you like biryanis. With very precision, they can tell you this thing. Right?
I think that's why people get amazed when they see, they have this intuition, okay, I was thinking about this, now suddenly I'm watching this ad.
Exactly.
This is why. Okay.
Exactly. So we are leaving traces over there unconsciously. Unconsciously, you are producing patterns which to human, they're not very intuitive, right? When you say to somebody that I can predict what you'll eat on Tuesdays, right? That's something people say, no, you can't.
You can't. But I would be feeling like something, okay.
Companies are, right? Now your cab aggregators, they know that when do you travel to office? Where is your office? Where is your home? On Sundays, you go with your girlfriends to watch a movie, you go for a shopping. They know almost everything, right? And as humans, we have a tendency of repeating things, right? Now, this might again seem very counterintuitive to you, but we have a pattern. everything that we're doing is according to a pattern over there. Knowingly or unknowingly. Exactly. And this is what these companies are exploiting, right? This is what these companies are doing. They are looking inside these patterns and they're trying to make your life much more easier.
Convenience. I think people go for convenience.
Exactly.
They make it convenient.
Exactly. Let's say if you open up your favorite food aggregator app, right? And now you're struggling with it, you have spent 10 minutes and you're still figuring out what to order, what not to order, right? That's the paradox. Choice of paradox thing is over there, right? That when you give multiple options to the people, right, they get confused what to choose.
Yes.
Now, what if I tell you that these companies can now understand the time at which you have opened the app, the day of the week, and the month? Based on that, they can predict what you will eat.
That's why I'm getting suggestions probably.
Exactly.
And
so they'll they'll take your food items from the vendor that you like the most, right? So like your biryani will come your favorite spot with the discount coupon already on top of it.
I think that's what data does. But this is what we are generating unconsciously or leaving traces. Does people or business owners also work on generating data for any sort of business problem? Let's say where there might not be any historical data available.
So yes, there are cases. So let's say, it's not that we have all the products. There are 0 to 1 products which are launched for the first time. So like if you talk about, let's say Uber, right? When Uber was launched, there was no taxi aggregator kind of thing, right? Where they could have the previous data or market data and they could analyze. But still we can find some proxies.
Okay.
Right. So you might not have exact data to prove that thing, right? But you have near bot proxies. So I was listening to this one day back, right? That when a food aggregator app wanted to launch in tier 2 cities, right? They were finding these things that which city should we target?
Yes.
Right?
Because I don't think many people would go for a...
Exactly. Now they don't have data, right? And they can't go and then survey 10,000 people in each city.
Yes.
So they have to find a proxy. You know what they did? They found this thing that which city has the most washing machine sales. Now, how is this related, right?
Absurd. Like,
yeah,
how
exactly.
would it relate?
So they said that food ordering is a very controversial thing. Your mom, Indian moms especially, right? They don't allow you to order food from outside.
Why are you eating from outside?
So they found a proxy over there. They said when they have a washing machine in their homes, right? This is where the moms are much more open up to things, right? They're helping their moms, and the mothers are now getting out of their way and they're saying, okay, I can have a washing machine, I can have other things, right? So they're much more open. So that's how they try to decide these the second tier cities over there. So you might not have exact data to prove that in this city, my food aggregation app will work, but you had a proxy over there to prove. So again, I told you, right? It's all about problem solving. Exactly. You're given a problem, right? Data is a kind of like a knife for you, like a weapon for you. And your mind is the one that is playing. So you need to learn how to find these proxies. And this happens to you in day to day. Let's say if you're working for a service-based company, right? Every 6 months, your client is changing.
Yes, new projects.
Exactly. Now, if you think it's a dreamy job where you'll go and the client will serve you the data on a golden platter and say, that's not happening, right? Majority of the times, the client might give you the historical data, but sometimes the client do not have data. Right?
That's where you find proxies.
That's where you find the proxies over there.
Your journey has been quite eventful. You went from a service-based company to a consulting firm and then to a product-based company. So how does it really differ, the kind of work that you encounter?
So when I started my data science journey, right, I started with a service-based company, fantastic company, and I had this incident. Again, an incident story. I always have this.
We are always up for a story. I think our audience also would like to know some really good stories.
So I was a very junior data scientist, and we had a client come in.
Yes.
And they were trying to do a POC with us, a proof of concept.
All right.
So they gave us some data, and I made a model around it. So the client came to India, and we kept a meeting with them that we'll showcase them the model. And I was super excited.
Okay.
I had a model which was like super accurate.
What are we talking about? The model? Is it a classification problem?
It's a classification problem. Yeah, it's a machine learning based classification problem, and I have like fantastic metrics for it.
All right.
Right? I mean, deadly numbers.
Like precision, recall, everything on point.
On point.
Okay.
Now you have this meeting over there. The client is sitting on the table. On the next side, it's my director. My director was very kind enough. He took me to this client call.
Okay.
I asked him that because I wanted to see that victory, right? Because I
Yes.
made that model, and now the model will be the center of the community. I mean, the center of the gravity is going to revolve around that model, right? Everybody's going to talk about my model. So I wanted to be there. We went over there and I made the deck, right? The first 5 deck were talking about data science, machine learning. Then we talked about their problem. And then, I had my page over there.
Yes.
Boom. This is the model that we've made. You know what happened? We never came to my page. And even if we came to my page, right? They were least interested. Because for them, data science is machine learning was a puzzle, right? Even if you explain it to them, they are more concerned to solve my problem.
Yes.
That day I understood that yes, tech is important, but business side is also important.
I think it's more important.
You have
solve
to
the problem.
marry both of them. There are multiple domains, right? Like my software developer friends, right? They are purely into tech. But I found that if you have to be active in data science, or if you want to scale up your career in data science, you need to understand business.
Yes.
Otherwise, you can't scale up. That day, I decided that I need to learn business also,
Okay.
right? So then I moved, and then I studied over there, and then I moved to consulting.
Okay.
Consulting is where I got my knowledge of business. This is where I understood. So the very first thing is to understand the problem, break the problem. I understood all these things over there.
All right. So let's say if somebody is starting out, I think problem solving we have got correctly in the picture. But this is what you learned moving from a service-based company to
Consulting.
a consulting firm. Now, how did the work change? It was completely same or was it different?
Oh, different, totally different. The consulting environment is totally different from service-based.
Is it like a fast-paced environment?
Super fast. So in a service-based industry, right, you are the implementer, you are the executor. So a strategy will be given to you and you have to implement it. Whereas in consulting, you are the one who strategizes that thing.
All right.
So you are the one who will strategize that, okay, this is the problem, this should be the solution. You might or might not implement, right? Now consultings are also coming up into implementation. So yes, we did a lot of implementation also. And, but service-based industries are more experts in implementation. Whereas consultings are very good at strategizing.
Yeah, because but what I feel is service-based companies, they have everything in place. They have the quality assurance team.
Exactly.
Then there's something might go wrong. Then they have the DevOps team, all those things.
Correct.
Do you also see the same thing in consulting firms when it comes to data science?
Since last some years, yes, but still not to that extent.
Okay.
Not to that extent. So consulting firms will first of all do a POC, quick POCs. Consultings are very fast, right? So they have something called as day zero result.
Day zero result.
Yeah. That means that let's say you had a call with the client, you understood the problem, and you have the answer that day also. So consultings are so fast.
Okay.
They have a day zero result, they have a week zero result, so they can churn out the answers very quickly. And they have frameworks for that and steps for that. But they are now coming into implementation also. And I did a lot of implementation at consulting also. We implemented a lot of data science projects and machine learning projects over there. But again, you might not do, again I'm saying might not do an end-to-end thing.
It's a part of a very small this thing.
No, so let's say you might give the solution to the client, you might explain that, okay, see, this is how it will work, this is how we have shown you these things, now go and use this partner to execute this thing.
Yes.
Right? Again, this is a might thing. Now things are changing. Now you might have seen now consulting firms coming into execution also, but a service-based industry has this expertise. They have like you were saying, right? That QA, Dev, DevOps and data scientist and data scientists at multiple levels also.
Yes.
So somebody who's only responsible for, let's say, research, somebody who's only responsible for applying it, so applying data scientist, and somebody who's, let's say, responsible for deploying it, so that's an MLOps engineer.
Yes.
So that whole life cycle is at a service-based industry. Consultings are slowly catching that up.
Okay. And when we talk about the product companies, so is it any different?
Product companies, they will give it a scale.
Okay.
Right? So at consulting, I learned how to marry business and tech. I was lacking the scale.
Okay.
So
When you say scale, what does it actually mean? Like,
so how much you're impacting them, right? So let's say when I was working for consulting, right, how many people am I touching with my model, right? What is the customer base? So when you work for a product base, right, you're directly working for the customers.
all right. Okay.
Right?
The scale to
Directly,
which
the
it
scale,
is
exactly.
impacting. Yes.
So when I switched to a product-based company, right, I had somewhat business, I had the tech somehow. Now I wanted to apply that on a larger scale,
Okay.
right? Because now you can see the impact. So let's say you're working for a cab aggregator. You suddenly made a model, and you can next day you can see your impact on some
10,000 people.
10,000 people, 1 million people, 10 million people, exactly in the market which you are.
Exactly.
So that gives you a scale over there. And you now understand that, okay, what is the intensity of the problem, right? It gives you a power that, okay, with just one problem that you solve, right, the impact is huge.
The butterfly effect.
The butterfly effect, exactly. That's
Every small action eventually will make a very great impact.
exactly. So at product companies, right, you will be solving, again, product company has, these wonderful things where you solve client, you don't solve business problems, you solve user problems.
Yes.
Like I gave you this example, right? That food aggregators were suffering from this thing where people keep on scrolling, and they go out. They don't order something.
So
Now, is there a fault in the app? No, the app is fantastic that they're spending 10 minutes on it. But did they eventually order? The answer is no. So
eventually data came into the picture.
Exactly. Data tells you the whole story. It gives you a holistic picture. And you start understanding that, okay, people come over here, people keep on scrolling, 3 scrolls, 5 scrolls. What is happening? You'll try to understand, is this happening in nights or is this happening in the morning? You try to decode all these patterns. Who are the people who are doing this thing? So you'll understand that there's a certain age group which is very impatient, which cannot understand. Sorry, but I also do this thing, right? I mean, Saturday nights I also do this kind of behavior. But this is what companies are solving.
I think they must be having humongous amount of data about this.
Huge amount of data. Every second you're leaving a trail of data behind for those companies to digest.
Yes.
And they are working for the betterment of you, right? I mean, who wants to spend 10 minutes on a food aggregator? Everybody wants to open it up, order, that's
Order
it.
food and get the food. Yes.
Your job to be done is to order a food, right? Let me eat delicious food.
Exactly.
Right? You want to spend time on it. So this is where the power of product company comes in, right? They help you to solve these very interesting problems.
So how did that help you in your journey? Like, how have you evolved as a data science professional from when you started and now? I mean, obviously you have a very great journey. You have a lot of experience. But how would you rate yourself in your, how has you evolved basically?
So I would say on both aspects, one need to evolve.
Yes.
See, one of the things with data science is it is expanding hugely.
Exponentially.
Exponentially. I mean, you might see, right? Every other day a new open LLM is being introduced, right? I mean, how do you catch up with that?
Exactly.
So there are 2 aspects that a good data scientist will have, right? One is that they have the adaptability, right? They are open
to
change. Exactly. So let's say you are using some kind of framework and now that framework is sunsetted. It's no more. So one needs to understand the underlying concept. So it becomes much more easier to switch quickly, right? So let's say if you have learned a particular framework and that framework dies, you are dead now. You're almost useless now. You can't do anything. But if you have understood the underlying concept, right, it's easier for you to jump. So that's the first aspect, that, it's a very high learning steep curve is there, right? So if somebody is signing up for data science, they need to make sure that they're not rigid. They're adaptable to new features, new changes. They need to adapt them. Second thing is, for some people especially, right, domain might be important. So in data science industry, we have 2 types of people.
But I think you have established that domain isn't necessarily very important. You just have to have that knack for problem solving.
Exactly. So in data science, we have 2 types of data scientists. One is the generalist, people like me, right?
Why would you call yourself a generalist?
Generalist, because we keep on hopping things, right? So let's say I worked for a fintech, then I worked for a pharmaceutical, and I worked for a marketing, right? You keep on switching. right? Whereas there's a demand for specialist data scientist also.
Okay.
So let's say somebody who has spent their entire career in just marketing,
Okay.
or let's say in pharmaceutical. So they're a marketing analyst, they're a pharmaceutical analyst, or let's say they're a fintech analyst, right? So now they have a deep knowledge of not just data science, but also domain. See, because if you're designing a machine learning problem, right? Because it's machine learning. Machine learning is that you have set of inputs and corresponding to it, you have to find the output. If you don't know it from a base platform perspective, right? You can't build the model also.
Exactly.
So at some point in life, right? If you are a specialist data scientist, you need to have domain knowledge also.
Yeah, but why would I be working for let's say, for example, pharmaceutical company if I don't want to know what kind of drugs or those things are?
Exactly. So let's say if you're manufacturing a drug, right? What are the factors that are responsible for making it a good drug or a bad drug?
Yes.
Right? How is it impacting the quality? If you don't know those features pre-hand before you're making the model, right? It's a kind of injustice that you're doing.
Yes.
But again, for junior folks, it might not be required. But for at a senior tenured position, that is required, I would say.
No, I think it's a very fascinating job, data science. Trying to solve a problem using data, and you have all these tools. Also, you said you have to have certain kind of adaptability. Don't just stick to one tool. So I also wanted to talk about what kind of skills, for example, let's get into the specifics. If somebody wants to get into the, let's say, a service, any kind of organization, what are the skills that one should have? Obviously, we know, we have established problem solving is one thing that should be a constant. It's the only constant we have in data science, problem solving. What other skills are we talking about?
So, see, when you're hiring somebody,
Yes.
right now, so see, hiring also happens at multiple scales,
Exactly.
right? I mean, data science, we're calling it as data science, but this broad industry can be broken down into smaller parts.
Exactly, how you told us, machine learning engineer, all those things.
Exactly. So every job description might have a different set of skills that it is demanding.
Exactly.
Right? There are some base things which are like expected from all the 3-4 sectors that you have, right? But then it becomes very specific.
Yes.
Right? So let's say if you're hiring for an MLOps engineer.
Okay.
Now, if he or she knows about data science, that's a very good thing. But at the same time, their skills would be monitoring the model, observing the model, deploying the model, right? Retraining the model, online, offline training of the model. Very good. Right? But you might not expect these kinds of skill from a data scientist or a machine learning engineer.
Yes.
Or like a applied data scientist. You might not expect from them. So every designation would have its own specific JD, job description over there.
Yes.
Which might be followed. So it's very hard to say that, what is, how do you hire somebody?
Oh, isn't that an injustice? When we say, okay, let's say somebody is very passionate about data and they just want to solve problems. So how do they choose these job roles?
That's a very good question. So let's say somebody who's starting from fresh, right? And I always say this thing, right? That in whichever domain you are, if you are a tenured person,
Yes.
let's say you are trying to switch your careers. We'll talk about freshers a little later. Let's talk about people who have some experience, right? I would always say start to see the use cases that you have in your industry. So I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Let's say somebody is into pharmaceutical. Now, pharmaceutical has very rarely, let's say, any image-based processing that they can do.
Okay.
Whereas if you talk about radiology, or if you talk about somebody who's operating a lab where they have chest x-rays, where they have brain, let's say, CT scans, right? There you expect less of machine learning and more of image-based deep learning.
Yes.
Right? So I always recommend people that in whichever domain you are, read use cases.
Okay.
Read analytics use cases that can be required, right? And then it is because then people can relate to things.
They would understand how data is going to solve a problem.
Exactly. And it becomes very easy to pick up your weapon. So I took a very basic example over here, right? Pharmaceutical people don't come and blame me, but if you talk from a very upper point of view, right? Pharmaceutical is more about, let's say, pharmas, drugs, right? There you have more of numerical data, right? More of text data. So you might want to study that part. Whereas in a radiology department where you have X-rays, right? You will go towards more of image-based deep learning stuff. So simple answer is, if you are an experienced person, try to read the use cases.
Alright.
And then you can connect the whole story for yourself. You can actually make your career 5 years ahead plan can also be made in the mind.
Yes.
Right? Because they already know what is happening in pharmaceutical. They know how the industry is going to turn.
Yes. They just need to put data into the right place.
Exactly. And for my friends who are graduating just now, right, from college, have young mind, right? Sometimes they get disheartened. Right? I have no domain, I have no industry. How do I get into? And you are saying that business is required. So see, again, you can become a journalist like me. It's not that it's a hard rule that you have to become a specialist. You can become a journalist like me also, right? But again, let's say if you have an interest in finance, start reading about it. If you have, let's say, interest in gaming, now there are a huge amount of jobs in data science and gaming, right? So it's again up to your interest. Whatever interest you have, pick that up. But again, start reading the use cases. For them also, I would say the same thing. Start reading the use cases.
So my objective when I asked you that question was because see, we see a very rewarding, domain also sometimes, and there are certain very average or on the lower spectrum of the average when we talk about financial well-being, let's say. So how do you make sure, because obviously everybody is very ambitious, they want to make a good living. So how do you make sure in data science, irrespective of what kind of organization you're working for, you have those sort of skills that will eventually get you to the higher spectrum?
So this is a economics 101.
Yes,
Supply versus demand.
exactly.
So wherever the supply is huge, right, your gains are going to be less,
Okay.
right? And wherever the supply is less, your gains are going to be high. The second thing is what kind of a niche you are playing in,
Yes.
right? And the third thing is your skill. Even if you, let's say today, are going into a market which is oversaturated, right, and it is overcrowded, if you have the skills, right, and we are again fortunate in that in data science industry, we are being credited based on the work that we do. So our general hiring as of today, right, it's now changing.
All right.
So if you think that now recruiters are going on LinkedIn or let's say these job portals, no, they're not going over there. They're coming to these platforms like Kaggle.
Yes.
They're seeing your GitHub profiles, right? They're no more on these job portals. They're seeing over there that, okay, if you have proved your potential, if you have
Somewhere
proved
or
your
the other.
mettle on a Kaggle competition, or let's say if you have proved your projects on GitHub, right? Even if the market's saturated, your gains are going to be very high.
And do you think the market's saturated for data science professionals?
No. The projections, there are certain projections that you will see, right? They're very high. And what is happening is, so not a lot of companies adapted data science at the same time,
Okay.
right? Those who have adapted are actually asking for more people to come in, right? More functions to be there. And the people who did not started with data science early, now they're asking for it. So to say that this market is oversaturated or it is done with it, it's a wrong statement.
It's a wrong statement.
It's a wrong statement.
So you also mentioned that you're a journalist.
Yeah.
So what is that one thing or a domain, you're knocking for it? Okay, when are they going to start working on this?
Oh. So legacy industries, right? That's again my personal opinion, right? It's my personal opinion that if you talk to these very legacy large industries, right? I'm talking about Fortune 500 companies. There, the penetration of data science is still low.
Still low.
Low, yes. There it is low.
That's quite surprising.
Yeah. So there it is still low because if you compare it to a new age startup company, right, where they are the data first,
Yes.
right? And if you talk about legacy companies, see, they have been there for a very long time, right? And to change the processes in those companies is very time consuming.
Cost effective.
Cost effective also, yes. So the data science penetration is a little lower as compared to our new tech companies, right? But they're still, but I can say one thing is that now every industry is learning about it, right? That, data has to be there. So in some or the small or the nascent form, they have it over there. they will now expand slowly.
Okay.
So you will see a huge demand coming from these Fortune 500 companies also, right? Already over there that they're asking for these things. And again, it's not sector specific. You can talk about automobile, you can talk about hardware manufacturing, you talk about cement manufacturing. So huge scope is there.
So something that fascinates me are sports analytics and data science in finance or fintech. So let's talk about fintech first. How does it work? Like, how is data making these solutions?
I thought we'll talk about sports first. This is the month of World Cups, I think. But let's talk about.
We'll come back to it.
Let's talk about fintech. So I think as a country we have evolved, right? Since last 5 years we have seen revolutionary things come up, right? UPI being the first one. Then we have transformation of other government schemes coming up which are making things much more easier, right? And very recently, if you have heard about it, government is launching a platform which is going to make it much more easier for you to take credit loans also.
Okay.
Right. So these things are evolving, and then buy now, pay later is one of the new things that are over there. So I think as a fintech, what is happening is people want to circulate the money more, right? And as a society, we are also, our habits are changing, right? So what companies are trying to do is, and fintech especially are trying to do is, they're trying to capitalize on this moment.
Okay.
If you have something through which if you can do fast payment, why not circulate this money, right?
Exactly.
I mean, there were days when if you do a bank transfer, it would take 2 days for you. Now it's gone, right? IMPS lets you do it instantaneously.
Exactly.
Even on Saturday, Sundays. Right?
Yes.
So
even on Saturday and Sundays.
Even on Saturday, Sundays, right? I mean, earlier, I remember at my age, it used to take T plus 2 days, T plus 3 days to get it settled, right? So finance is one thing where India has taken a huge leap in 5 years, and fintech companies are trying to understand now. So there are 2 or 3 types of companies, right? The first kind of companies are who are trying to help you to manage your money.
Okay.
So there are companies like who will help you to, let's say, categorize your spends, how you are spending,
understand how your spending habits
are. Exactly. And help you to, let's say, save money.
Exactly.
Right? Help you to invest money. Exactly. There are apps which will help you to invest money into those things. Second kind of apps are which see your money and they say, why don't you spend it on these platforms of us? So they will bring in your favorite brands to their platform and they will help you to make it much more easier to again spend. Right? One of the categories inside this is BNPL, buy now, pay later. Yes. Which is actually like an advantage for people who do not have the upfront money to do it, and then you can divide it over there. So
are we really at the advantage, by the way?
So it's both, right? It's both. If you have the discipline, if you have the discipline, I think BNPL is a very good thing, because if you want something urgent and you don't have the disposable money, you can pay it off in installments, right? It becomes so much easier. But again, the discipline is the key over there. And this is what these companies are doing. Right? If you talk about today, right, UPI aggregators, all these pay companies, right, they're understanding your transaction patterns, and they're helping you to bring the partners, these companies, much closer to you, and they're making it very targeted.
Okay.
Right? They're trying to understand that, let's say, okay, you are spending so much money in this category, right? They'll make you much more easier for you to not spend time finding these people, and they'll bring the platform closer to you.
All right.
So fintech companies are this, and then there's the third segment, which is like in the insurance segment, right? You might have seen now the boom that you can now do your bike insurance just by sitting on an app, take some photos of your bike, and insurance is done. Right? Literally in an hour, your whole insurance is done. And think about the time where you have to do it manually. I would take my vehicle, they would inspect it, they would say, sir, this is not there, this is not there, that is not there, and then they would charge you for those things. But now it's just simply sitting at your home, take clear 10-20 pictures, done. So that's also like a part of fintech over there that they're trying to do. And then again, 100 things, right? But they're democratizing the way money used to think, right? And I think I would give a huge shout out to the government of India, right? I mean,
they're doing a lot about this.
eKYC, right? I mean, if you remember the old days, you had to do a complete KYC.
I think one of the reasons why people were not, doing this, because it was a very long time taking process.
Exactly. I mean, with video KYC, with your
Yes.
Aadhaar database over there and linking, right? It's so much easier for these companies to onboard users now. Now imagine you had to open a Demat account, you had to like sign a 10-20 page of document,
Oh yes.
and you have to send it to that, like you have to literally parcel that particular like package over there. Today it just takes half an hour. You have a video KYC over there. So government is trying to build this platform where they're saying identity, authority, and then with this Aadhaar stack over there, eKYC stack over there, then UPI stack over there. This is called as the whole India tech. India tech, this is called as, and then they're utilizing this thing to onboard. So fintech companies are taking advantage of this thing. India is not alone now. Fortunately, other countries had learned
also
from
joined
us.
up.
Yeah, exactly. Now UPI, as you see, right, it has been onboarded on different countries. So I think fintech is something which people used to say. If you remember, right, people used to say that banks are very lazy in taking tech. If you remember, right, bank apps were the ones which had the latest things. Bank's website used to say that it will work only on Internet Explorer 7.0 version. That's it. You can't run it on Chrome, you can't run it on Firefox, because banks were very regulated, very risk compliant things. And now, what is happening is
They've even switched to UPI.
exactly, they're innovative now. They're innovating now. Banks are coming up front. Banks are saying that we can't stay behind in this game.
Exactly.
And they're taking a step ahead with these fintechs. So they're going hand in hand together with these people. Right? Credit card is another industry, right?
Yes.
Revolutionized.
Do you think that Hello World problem, that credit card risk detection, all those things, those Hello World, when you were starting out, would they eventually come into the picture?
See, so the problem that we did over there was like a small tip of the iceberg that you see. So any credit financial company has a complete credit financial modeling team.
Okay.
A risk compliant modeling team which is sitting over there, which are understanding almost thousands of your parameter of somebody before giving somebody a loan, before giving somebody a credit card. They're understanding all these things. Especially banks. They understand the risk.
Yes.
And banks, they still are much more risk averse, and they understand the risk as compared to fintech companies. So you will see a huge amount of data scientists are sitting over there. They're regularly building these models, adapting to the new features of these models, and they're making sure that the default rate should be as low as possible.
Another business problem again. So when we talk about sports analytics, my question would be, we have sports like cricket World Cup.
Yeah.
So where you can have the analytical team sit down, work a plan. This is how it's going to be. In real time, it might help. But when we have sports like F1, where you have to make a split second decision, like, how different it could be? Like, do we have that sort of computational power with our models, or the solutions that we have with data science?
Definitely. So even cricket is a split second kind of a game, right? I mean, the ball is coming at you and you have to take action now. Based on those 10 people who are standing over there, right? Wicket keeper still is, let's say, a constant, and let's say the bowler is over there. But the 9 people who are standing, based on that, you have to take a decision, right? That's also a split second kind of a thing. But I'll answer this thing. So Microsoft, I think, recently did a thing for cricket, if I'm not wrong, right? And they actually did a sports analytics on cricket, where they're trying to understand for each batsman. And I think now it is implemented in
a lot of franchises in these
are doing exactly. Yes, in IPL they're doing this thing, right?
Yes.
Where they're trying to understand that how when a batsman plays, right? When a bowler is throwing a ball, right? What are the different simulations that they have? What are the different options that they have? And how do they react? So today, we know that if a bowler, let's say, was hit a 6,
yes,
the model can actually predict that what is the next ball going to be.
Okay, but how do you commit? Okay, that's one more thing. I think the sports auditors or somebody would intervene at some point.
Yeah,
because it could actually be very advantageous for people who are using it now, or the franchisees, let's say, who are not using it.
See, today you are seeing it as at a, let's say, a end-to-end automated scale. Earlier used to also happen, right? People would watch the old videos. So the players would sit down and watch the old videos for hockey or cricket, right? And they would try to understand, okay, this particular X bowler bowls this kind of bowl in, let's say, in the death
Have to
overs.
use it for
Yeah,
six
exactly. In the death overs of 4. So they would understand earlier also. But earlier it was a process where they would do it manually.
They'll just assume, okay, this might be.
Might be. Exactly. There was a might. Now we have a confidence associated to it.
Yes.
Now we have a confidence that, okay, if in the sixth over of that particular bowler, if let's say there's a 4 that the bowler has got, right? There is a 86% confidence that the next ball is going to be this XYZ ball. So that is happening today. Again, as I told you, right? Humans are nothing but, let's say, repeaters, right? We are like data patterns. We are generating patterns inside it. And then talking about F1, right? F1, and I actually know this case, F1 and for sailing.
All right.
Right?
Yes, sailing is.
I have seen these models which exist, which create simulations. So as a F1 driver, the biggest thing for you is to know what to do when something happens. So for every X, what is the response of Y?
All right.
So one thing is that they can either go on the field, but now you can't generate an air drag in the field.
Yes.
Right? You can't do that. You can't, let's say, have multiple competitors when you are doing a test. Because in the test, you are on your own, right? When you are doing the practice, you are on your own. So these simulation models are there now. They will help you to generate these kinds of scenarios for you. So let's say you are sitting in your test machine and then they can generate, let's say, drag. So let's say from the previous performance, we know that the F1 player had some problems with, I'm taking an example, let's say had some problems with air drag. They can actually create those simulations for that driver, and then the coach can help them understand that, okay, see, this is where you lag, this is where you do.
And they would also know this is what this person is going to do at this point.
Exactly. So they are first of all creating simulations for training themselves, right?
Yes.
And then from that data, they are understanding what are the loopholes, where is my player, let's say, getting lost, or let's say what are the bad things happening, right? And they can rectify those things.
All right.
Before even the match starts, right? They're preparing them for the adverse things. So I mean, if you are working on let's say if rain happens, just an again random example, if rain happens, how would they react to it? Okay. So they can create those simulations where the friction between the where the tire and the road can be adjusted to for a rainy day.
And also prepare them for the best case scenario.
Exactly. So data is actually helping them at this level, at sports, right? Wimbledon now is officially using data analytics, right? And they're trying to use it. I think last year or last year.
Now I would love to know how they are going to use data science in tennis.
Tennis, yes. Same again, right? What is the racket speed?
Simulation.
Yeah, the simulations, exactly. How do you react, right? What is
Finally
the
play against Nadal, let's say. Once in a while.
You can, you can.
Obviously, the previous data would eventually not let us win because it's Nadal.
Correct.
I mean, some might say Federer, but I'm a personal fan of Nadal, so I would say that.
I'm saying Rafa for life.
So talking about what's happening today, let's also talk about generative AI. So the onset of ChatGPT has created this, very big boom. Everybody is talking about it. Everybody wants to use it. Everybody wants to know how they would use these tools in their business, how they can make it better. Some people are worried about their jobs. What do you think?
So this is from respect from data science, or like
from respect from data science only, because I know for sure that this generative AI is not something that has just come into the picture. So what do you think? Like, how is it going to evolve or change the landscape basically?
So see, as a data scientist, right, I think it's going to Copilot. So just to help you, right, just last night, GitHub Copilot became the first product, Gen AI product, which has surpassed the 100 million ARR. So the GPT or the Gen AI, right, they're no more a fad.
Yes.
They have proved their mettle that a company can make 100 million ARR generating product.
Exactly.
That's the first thing. The second thing is that they are going to be helping data scientists in multiple ways. GitHub, let's say Copilot is the first example.
Yes.
It is helping you to write your code much more faster and efficiently.
I think the inception of Copilot was before ChatGPT.
Yeah, so they were making some kind of a model, right? But I think with GPT-4 coming in, right, they have scaled it huge. And I think Microsoft being Microsoft, because they have the OpenAI backing now, they have this backdoor. They have this model already that they can use and they can make their things. So GPT-4 has like enabled an area where everybody can come in and can put in their use cases and get the like fast results.
Maybe the horizons have just become bigger.
So as a data scientist,
are endless.
So as a data scientist, I would be less scared. I would be more using it as a like a helper for me, right?
Yes.
Writing use cases, thinking about, let's say, features. I'll take an example. Let's say we are working for an industry where you've never worked. Let's say gold mining.
Yes.
And let's say your task is to make a model which checks the quality of the gold. Now, I have no idea what gold quality is, how is gold mined, and I need to read about all these things. One way is I can go on Google and then can read plethora of those blogs and articles, and they're still not oriented based on my knowledge. I don't want to learn the whole process of gold mining. I just need to learn what are the features that impact for my modeling.
Exactly.
I can actually ask ChatGPT.
Just a simple prompt, yes.
Exactly. Simple prompt. Prompt is the whole game, right? If you are somebody, let's say I'll take another example. Let's say somebody wrote a code in R. I had to convert it into Python.
Simple prompt would do that.
The third thing over here is that using it from a business perspective, using it for a text perspective. Third is a cautionous thing.
Okay.
Right? GPT is still hallucinating a lot. So with hallucination, I mean that ChatGPT does not have always the correct answers. It will try to make up answers also for you. So you need to understand what is ChatGPT. ChatGPT is something when you give a prompt, right? It tries to come up with the next words, next sentences for that particular thing.
Yes.
So now they're factually correct or not, that's nobody knows.
There's no way to tell.
There's no way to know that thing, right? There are other startups now which are coming up with the point that, okay, we have taken this text from, or let's say we have inspired this text from this particular reference. So they're giving you that. And the newer GPTs also now, ChatGPT is now giving you that reference point also. But there was this example for, I think 4 or 5 months ago, this lawyer in US, right?
Okay.
He was fighting a case. He wanted to know some old cases that might have happened. He went home, he did some prompt with ChatGPT. It made a case. It gave some responses that these are the previous cases. That lawyer took them, printed out, took them and submitted in the court. The court later found out that none of those cases really existed. It was ChatGPT which hallucinated the responses. So for us, right, anybody who's using it, please take the answer with a pinch of salt, right? Try to check the factuality of that particular thing. Companies are doing this thing. I know so Google Bard, if you go on that, right, you'll see that they are now giving you references. If you go to Bing chat, also they're giving you responses. ChatGPT might also do this somewhere. If I'm not wrong, they have already done this thing for their paid model. They're giving it.
GPT-4, I guess.
GPT-4, yeah. They're, I think for the paid one, they are still giving it. So technically, to make you strong, ChatGPT can help you. Business can make you strong, ChatGPT can help you. Third thing is be cautious.
Yes.
Right? Don't blindly just copy whatever it says.
All right.
Right?
I think it's better to get a credible source.
Exactly. Use it as a reference.
Yes.
Use it as a reference and try to ask it as much questions as you can. Right.
All right.
So let's say if you are let's say converting a code from R to Python, right? Don't just blindly copy that Python code that is converted from the R. Try to ask the logic. Yes. That okay, right? What was that R function doing over there? What was that this point doing over there? How did you convert this into Python? Exactly. Try to understand that thing and please cross check it over there.
I think it's a very good note for the impatient generation we were talking about. Yes, because they are blatantly just copying everything that ChatGPT gives.
That we need to be cautious about it, right? At least for some more time, we need to be cautious that these models are still learning, right? Also, they had a end life. So most of these models were trained till 2021. Now they are retraining it. So now they've come up. But again, you need to be cognitive of the fact, right? That they hallucinate. Second, they don't have all knowledge.
Yes.
They have a learning stop.
So how does a LLM or not an LLM generative model actually work? Like to be specific, like what are the things that come into the picture? Like we have seen neural networks, deep learning networks, all those things. how is it different from those? Like, how does a generative model work?
So, see, there are two types of fields, right? One is processing, right? One is understanding,
Yes.
and the third one is generating.
Okay.
So we were living in that era where we were, let's say, finding the results by processing the historical data,
Exactly.
right? Or understanding the historical data. So processing and understanding was what we were doing earlier.
Yes.
And based on that, we were giving you the answers. Now we are into a generative world, right? Natural language generative, NLG,
Yes.
right? Where what we are trying to do is we are trying to generate sentences now. We are trying to generate words, next words, right? So think of it like this, that when you ask a question to me, I try to answer it. How? Because I have this experience and like whatever data science experience I have, right? I'm trying to frame a sentence over here. This is exactly how GPT service works.
I think it's very simply put. Obviously, there's
there's a huge complexity behind it, but see, what the model is trying to learn is that there's this huge corpus of data that they have. Think of it, let's say the whole internet over here.
Exactly.
Right? If they have this knowledge and if somebody is asking a question, how does a human frames the answer? That's how they're trying to come up, right? So this all started, see, this is not new, right? It all started with attention paper that came out from Google, right? Based on that, we had Transformers, then BERT came out.
Yes.
And then now we are living in the generative pre-trained era also, GPT era also.
Yeah, I think using pre-trained models and the computational power that cloud gives, for example, it's made the game very easy. I think people who know how it works, is it easier for them now to create such models? Because nobody would be working on an LLM. It's obviously very tough to create such a machine, but if you already have a pre-trained model, it makes the use case a little bit easier.
Correct. So making a GPT-4 from scratch is a difficult task.
It's a difficult task.
Right.
Yes.
If you are, let's say, a company which manufactures steel, for you it makes zero sense to invest so much of time and team and energy into making a scratch GPT model.
Yes.
As of today, we don't know about tomorrow. As of today, what makes sense is that if you have a model already, right, pre-train that model. Right? Take that model and pre-train it on your existing data, on your company data, and then try to customize it for your company. So a lot of companies, what they're doing is they're using Azure's capability now because they've integrated with OpenAI. So what you can do is you can dump your company data, and Azure will now retrain that model again, the existing GPT-4 or GPT 3.5. They'll retrain it based on the company data, and they'll try to make a customized model for you which has knowledge about your company also, because your company might have some internal data, right, which was not on Google earlier, or let's say on internet earlier. Now
how would somebody feel putting their, for example, let's say confidential data over the cloud?
So that's like a cloud story, right? It's less of a data science story. It's more of a cloud problem, right?
Yes,
but companies have established this trust, right? They are saying that, see, we'll give you a virtual private network.
Yes.
Where your data stays in your place and it's an isolated place. Nobody else can access this. Nobody else can see it. Nobody else can even work on it. Okay. Right? So, and this fight is not new fight, right? That data on cloud, it has been for a very long fight. And I think now people have mend ways over there that, okay, cloud has given us the trust and people are trusting it now and giving it over there. Same is happening with generative models also, pre-trained generative models also, that, companies are trusting them with data and in response, they're giving them a pre-trained custom model for them.
All right. So towards the end, sir, I would like you to address our audience and, let's say if somebody is just starting out their career or they have already established themselves, like we've talked in the beginning, they're trying to solve a problem, looking to shift domains. What would you like to tell them?
So I would again say, don't shift domains, right? Don't waste your X amount of years that you've spent, right? Data science will respect it, right? Data will respect it. You can tell me any industry, it has data. No industry is without data, right? Even if you're talking about manufacturing also, right? Chemical manufacturing I'm talking about, right? There also data is there. So I would say if you are somebody who's changing their career, do not, I would say not do not, I would say try to stick with your industry. That's the first option. If it does not work out for you, then you become like a journalist track you can come on. Second thing is that problem solving thing that we started this session with, right? That this podcast with this is problem solving, right? So gain yourself, train your mind in such a way that you are solving problems now. How do you break a bigger complex problem into small sections and then how you solve them for it, right? Because see, there's nothing such as complex problems.
Yes.
There are always big problems. Big problem is a combination of multiple easy small problems. Exactly. So do that. And the third thing is, don't be scared. I have seen some people, right? They think that, there's such a high barrier into data science that they don't even jump in.
Yes.
And they're stuck into this loop, right? That, okay, they're Googling up how to become a data scientist. They'll read that thing and then again, after 3 months, they'll come back and read again those things.
I mean, the search volume on how to become a data scientist is crazy.
It's crazy. So I would say, start it, right? And data science always respects practical more. So the more you practice, and again today, right, there's a world where data is everywhere, right? I mean, you have Kaggle, go over there, solve problems.
Competitions.
You take any problem that you have. If you have the data, start working on it and put it up.
Yes.
Right? You have no scarcity of data and no scarcity of problem. Problems are there, data is there, just use it, solve problems. And today the industry respects less of your CV, more of your Kaggle profile or a GitHub profile. That's
basically the proved work that you've done.
Proved work you've done. Exactly.
Right. So, sir, before we end this podcast, I would also like to know some of your favorite use cases in the recent years that you've come across or maybe have worked on also.
My favorite use cases. One was the sports, because I grew up watching cricket. I've never played it so much, but I grew up watching. So sports analytics is one thing. Second is this, how the advertising world has changed, right? How from TV and paper ads, we have suddenly shifted to a super hyper targeted advertisements now.
When you say hyper targeted, is it actually the real picture?
That's exactly the picture, right? I mean, if you do a Google search right now, right, your profile is being bundled up with all your metadata, right? Then whatever information they can collect, and then your profile is being auctioned. So let's say if you're searching on shoe, right, your profile is being auctioned by multiple shoe players.
That's great.
And based on your profile, they'll bid that, okay, for this particular profile, will give us this much amount of money, and you place my ad on the top.
Okay.
So these ad placements, right, they're not static. They're dynamic over there. Right? So ads are now becoming more and more and more hyper personalized, and with D2C coming in, right? Where D2C companies which are working only in niche. Now you might have seen there is a particular company which might, let's say, only print bags with some particular embroidery, right? Or let's say there's a particular company which might sell you food, but only low calorie, high intensity vegan foods. Exactly. Now see, the market is very small. The moment you say I want to sell vegan foods, that's a good example, right? The market becomes very small. So you need to spend your money in such a way that you capture your market only.
The target audience. We are actually trying to find the target audience.
Exactly. With paper ads, you can't do it, right? I mean, with paper ads, you're showing your ad to even non-vegetarians, vegetarians, everybody, right?
Yes.
There's no use over there. You need to show your ads only to vegan people. How do you identify that? This is where the whole game is. This is where the data comes in, right? And this is where this whole picture of advertisement happens. So I think this is very fascinating that in how last 10 years, we have reached to a place where a small D2C company can find its total addressable market.
I think we've seen a lot of people do that also. Like small businesses are actually doing it and killing it in this space.
Definitely. And the shopping culture has changed suddenly.
Yes. Everybody is just opening their smart apparel brands and all those.
Exactly. And consumers also changing.
Yes.
Consumers used to be first offline. They would go to malls, they would go to these shops. They went to e-commerce. Then came this phase of e-com, where you will go to these Amazons and the Flipkarts of the world.
Yes.
The third wave is now people are not buying on e-com, right? People are much more buying, and especially these D2T, right? They're buying it on platforms, these social networking where you have communities,
Exactly.
right? WhatsApp, Instagram, right? People are buying over here. People directly contact you through over there because they find your ad over there, right? They contact you on Instagram or on WhatsApp or whatever channel it is, right? They'll order it over there.
And you probably see that ad because you had search about it, let's say somewhere.
Sometime you might have given a proxy to the platform that I am interested into this thing.
You became a data point at some time.
Exactly. China has now, I think they are doing one of the biggest live shopping. So there's a creator sitting over there, right? And China, I mean, the platforms now know that where this data video needs to be streamed. What are the audiences that might be interested in this thing? And this always was this thing. TikTok in 2023, right? At 2022, I think at one point in US, it's not in India, it's in US, right? It became, for one segment of search, it became higher than Google. So people are technically searching for products on TikTok more as compared to Google. Right? So your search engine thing is now crashing, not crashing away, but it's going away, and these new search engines are coming up now where people are spending it. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world right now. Imagine a video company is a biggest search engine.
Yeah, where there's no credibility at all. I mean, up to some extent.
Actually, credibility is there. That's why people are finding it, right?
Yes.
Credibility is there. That's why people are finding it. So for me, this is where companies have they've found this thing. Discoverability, right?
Yes.
This is the biggest thing. Where these companies have found that using data sciences, using these patterns, we can first of all serve them hyper realistic content, right? Hyper targeted content, and then hyper targeted ads.
No, why I said credibility would be because, see, anyone can upload a video. Let's say if I'm even if I don't know how to cook, I can just make a cooking video, put it up. Let's say if it ranks sometime, somebody might search for it, find it. They would actually believe that okay, this guy might be cooking or something. In that sense,
So
the credibility is a little lacking.
That's the another facade of the thing, right? Where you do not have credibility or you don't have authority. Somebody might have, but again, see, brands are doing this thing, right? So we're talking about brands, that brands need to sell their ads.
Yes.
Hyper realistic, hyper personalized ads. This is what we want to sell, right? We want to address, exactly. So this is, I think, in the last 5 years, 10 years, this game has completely changed. Completely changed. These companies are now have understood that how we should target our customers, right? That I think after sports analytics, I think this is the second thing which really excites me.
I think that's key for the audience to choose the domains which are going to be very rewarding in the future, because that's where the future lies. Yes. So I think that's a very good note we can end this podcast on. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on Intellipaat and talking to our lovely audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me over here.